Hurricane, earthquake, and wildfire. FEMA comes fenced in with barbed wire. We're in the end, no time to get tired. Do what's required. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah.
Do it all.
Obey, yeah, 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 yeah.
Must obey these laws.
Obey, yeah, 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 yeah.
No matter what.
Obey, yeah, 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 yeah,
stand
yeah.
up. Now we the chosen, can see the end is speedily approaching. By the showing of these tokens, we knowing the prophecies unfolding. Right before our very eyes, now all your eyes awoken to recognize when Mashiach Yahushua spoken. In the midst of all the commotion, another seal has been broken. The window of grace is closing. Now you watching when every moment you on social media scrolling, commenting on what the next man posting. On babies lost and ye should dwell in safety. That's in a land of Goshen. 400 years of slaves was brought across the Atlantic Ocean. Now we turning back to Jerusalem and we praying and hoping for deliverance out the city tenements of Babylon.
Hurricane, earthquake, and wildfire. FEMA comes fenced in with barbed wire. We're in the end, no time to get tired. Do what's required. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah.
From a mother's womb, destined to speak these words. Israel, the chosen seed, the nation he prefers. Not to boast or brag, Gentiles, I know they mad, but we just came to claim what we're supposed to have. Honor, riches, diamonds, treasures, glory, kingdom. He showed it to Esdras. Our people walking orderly. Our nation about to rise. Some may have 7 ribs, others 1,000 wives. We have to suffer first. We have to take this cup. We gotta preach the word until he takes us up. We gotta spread the gospel. We gotta give them comfort and let the heathen know that their days are numbered. Yahweh is his name and his name alone. And when the story's over, Christ wins the Game of Thrones. But it's not a movie. It wasn't made for TV. To reach that magic number, he's not gonna make it easy. Focus, order, sermons, teaching. Repeat every week cause the lost sheep are sleeping. But this ain't a job to me. It's gonna happen cause it's written down in prophecy.
Hurricane, earthquake, and wildfire. FEMA comes fenced in with barbed wire. We're in the end, no time to get tired. Do what's required. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah. Obey, yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, alrighty. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another edition of the Lions of Israel TV, Lions of Israel Sabbath. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. And of course, we do that in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It's your brother, Priest Daniel Allah, representing Lions of Israel. Just came at you, brothers and sisters, with a quick lesson. I didn't want to disappoint you, brothers and sisters. I had a lot of things going on, but nevertheless, I didn't want to make any excuses. You know, consistency is the key. So regardless of what I had going on, whether it's a long lesson for 2 hours or a short lesson for a half an hour, I definitely wanted to come before you, brothers and sisters, and just quickly go over a topic that we had a great conversation this week on Clubhouse about, that I kind of wanted just to continue a little bit in that conversation and also demonstrate some of the things that we were talking about in that conversation. But before we get started, brothers and sisters, as usual, I want to shout out everybody that's watching on YouTube. All right, brothers and sisters that's watching on the Lions of Israel class page, shout out to y'all. You where you're supposed to be. That's why I'm trying to get everybody to go. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody that's watching on Maccabees TV. Love y'all. Y'all are stubborn. I told y'all to subscribe to the Sabbath page. But nevertheless, I've been doing the lessons live on Maccabees TV too, because I think the information is important. So I put it out on multiple channels to make sure that as many people that would like the information have access to the information. I also Want to give a shout out, of course, as I do every week, to Messiah TV for allowing us to broadcast on his network and to broadcast into people's homes. And I pray, if it be the Most High's will, that, somebody is edified at home that wasn't really looking for this. But, they came across this, and maybe the Most High can wake them up to this truth. So all praise to the Most High for that. And last but not least, of course, the people on Clubhouse, the family on Clubhouse, shout out to y'all. You brothers and sisters on Clubhouse already know y'all already know the etiquette, right? So Clubhouse, goes a little crazy sometimes. We all go into the matrix sometimes. Things get a little janky over there. So, of course, you guys can feel free to slide right on over to the YouTube link at the top of the room. And as usual, brothers and sisters, be sure to share the room on Clubhouse. Be sure to share the video on YouTube. And without further ado, brothers and sisters, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna go out. Right, I'm starting a little late, so a lot of people don't know I'm live. That's all right. They can always catch this on the replays on Clubhouse, so they can come back to YouTube and watch the video later. So we're gonna just jump right on in. The only thing that I'm going to do really quickly, of course, as usual, is I'm just going to play one quick prayer, which is the Lord's Prayer, Psalms 121, and then we're going to jump right into the lesson without further ado. Let's go.
Hafapalau, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
So I'm going to stop that there. Y'all ain't ready, like I always tell y'all, man, but that's them brothers singing the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. They did a fantastic job. Wherever those brothers are, all praise to the Most High for those brothers. I want to get started without further ado and get right over to the lesson. So as I told you, brothers and sisters, I'm continuing a conversation that we were having on Clubhouse earlier this week. It was a fantastic conversation, in so much that it was one of those days where there wasn't really a lot of scoffers coming to the stage, but a lot of information came out in the room. And, as I was explaining to brothers and sisters in the room, myself, Brother Yawasop and Panar from Rum Gadal, I believe Brother Corey was on the stage, and a few of us, we were sharing a lot of information with the audience, right? And Brother Yawa, can't forget Brother Yawa, aka Brother Joel from Sons of Thunder. We were sharing a lot of information about the Bible. That I believe the topic of the room was, Salaki, why should we believe the Bible? And that's a good question. It's not a bad question. It's a good question, because a lot of our people have that question. So just because we believe, we can't take for granted that everybody's going to have the same level of faith that we're going to have. So we began to have a conversation about these things, and a lot of great information was coming out on the stage. And, I was talking, Yawasop was talking, so forth and so on. And one of the things that I said in the room was, these things that we're saying to you, brothers and sisters, have to be demonstrated. You see, I always use the phrase and the term, brothers and sisters, that the Most High, in order for us to have the Bible we have today, right? A long black arm didn't reach out the sky and hand somebody a Bible and be like, here's the word of God. That's not how it happened. there is processes that took place. And we went over some of those processes that took place. First of all, the Bible had to be, the word of the Most High had to be given, right? And the prophets and the scribes had to record it. After they recorded the word of God had to be preserved, right? Then the word of God had to be disseminated, meaning you had Levites throughout all the coast of Israel that had to have a copy of the law. The king had to have a copy of the law. It had to be scribed, it had to be disseminated, right? Then as the Israelite kingdom fell, right, and we went into different captivities, some of the Israelites stayed in the diaspora and never came back to Jerusalem, right? They were generationally born in Asia Minor and Egypt and places like that. So now the words of the Most High have to be transmitted. It has to go from the center point, which is Jerusalem, throughout the diaspora. There's a transmission process, right? And now some of these Jews, guess what? They lost their language. So guess what had to happen next? Everybody should know translation. You guys see the long and tedious process that happens for us to get the Bible today? Then there had to be another series of preservation, right? Of the records, because the records were being burned, destroyed. The Vatican was hiding records. The Vatican was killing people for translating the Bible. You had a lot of stuff going on. It's a bloody history behind it. Noah long, black arm didn't reach out to the sky and give us the Bible. So this is a stumbling block for a lot of people. Why should we believe that book? So we got to start from the beginning. Now, I'm not going to go too deep. Like I said, this is a brief lesson, but I kind of want to demonstrate some of what we was talking about in that room. I'm not necessarily going to go into the whole translation and transmission process too much, but I'm going to talk a little bit about heresies. The reason why I want to talk about heresies is because somebody came to the stage, I believe it was yesterday, it was a different room, and said the famous words, "I'm confused. I'm confused. It's so many groups out here. You got Rum Gadal, you got Lions of Israel, you got Sons of Thunder, you got Tabernacle of David, you got House of Israel. I'm confused. Why is there so many different groups?" So we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about it. A brief look at heresy. What is a heresy? Let's look at the definition of what a heresy is. A doctrine which is erroneous in such a way that Christians must divide themselves as a church from all who teach or accept it. Those adhering to heresy are assumed to be lost, although Christians are unable to make definitive judgments on this matter, the opposite of orthodoxy. So this definition of heresy was given to us by Christians. This definition, brothers and sisters, is erroneous. It's erroneous. Let's go to the next slide. You brothers and sisters that's on Clubhouse, y'all might want to click the link at the top of the room. If you can watch, it's better for you to watch than to listen. If you can't watch, then listen. But it's better for you to watch than listen. It's a PowerPoint. I'm going to be showing you guys some stuff, some books you already know. So click the link at the top of the room and come over. Hit the like button. Share the room in the hallways on Clubhouse. Share the room on all your social media apps, because a lot of Israelites need to hear this, right? Because they're confused. I'm confused. I'm going to stay by myself. I'm confused. Let's go. We got some warnings from the apostles, right? Let's go to the Apostle Paul first, in the order that the Bible, the books of the Bible appear. Corinthians comes before 2 Peter. So let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 18 through 20, and let's read it. This is 101 stuff. It says, "First of all, when ye come together in the church, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it." You read about those divisions. Everybody should know. We're reading 1 Corinthians. You read about those divisions in chapter 1. First rule of thumb, we have to change the way we think about the Bible. I always say this week in and week out ad nauseum, and guess what? I'm going to say it until the kingdom come, or if the Most High take me out before the kingdom come. Whatever it be, you're going to hear this from me. As long as there's breath in my body, I'm going to keep saying the same stuff. Repetition is the key to understanding. You guys got to hear stuff over and over and over again, not until you believe it because I'm saying it, but until you own it. You hear it so much that you went and looked into it, and now you could teach it too. So I'm going to keep repeating myself. The book of Corinthians is an epistle. It's a letter. There are no chapters or verses. It's only a modern convenience that was put in our Bible in the year 1560 for us to be able to find verses, to make it easy for us. It's a modern convenience, but it really, in the scope of things, doesn't exist in Scripture at all. Understand that. So these divisions or heresies that's being spoken about in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 are mentioned in chapter 1. For more context and detail, the church of Corinth was stratified. There was all types of quote unquote, for lack of a better word, there were cliques in the church. They were separated and divided amongst themselves. Let's read that again. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 18, right? Verse 18. It says, for first of all, when ye are come together in the church, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it. For there must be also what? Heresies among you, that they which are approved may be manifest among you. So Paul, the Apostle Paul, warned the church at Corinth, not only are there divisions amongst you within the church, but eventually there'll be heresies too. There'll be heresies too. Keep that in mind, okay? Now let's go to the Apostle Peter. This is the book of 2 Peter chapter 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. It says, but there were false prophets also among the people. There have always been false prophets amongst Israel. Always. Even as there shall be, prophecy, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies. You read about that in Galatians chapter 2. When those men came into the church at Galatia and they started teaching that salvation was contingent upon circumcision. Paul didn't teach that. Christ didn't teach that. Justification is through circumcision of your flesh. Paul didn't teach that. Christ, Yahushua, didn't teach that. Justification is contingent on Christ, Yahushua, dying and shedding his blood so we can be justified through his blood. But those guys went down to the church and started teaching that. You had heresies all over the place in the first century. So I don't understand. This is why I'm doing a lesson. I don't understand why you're confused. Oh, there's so many different. It was that way then too. The apostles warned you. It was going on during their day. So Peter was letting you know, guess what? It's going to be going on continually, even now. Even now. So it shouldn't bug you out. Why are you bugged out about it? It's right there in black and white. Let's read it again. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. You would have some people that would come in with the heresy and deny Yahushua altogether in one way or another. We're going to read about some of that in a minute. Verse 2. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, meaning what? When these heresies pop up, you're going to have people that's going to go along with it. Well, y'all see it all the time in Israel now and bug out. Like, what's going on? What's going on is the same thing that was going on with when the apostles was around. Same thing. Why are you confused? Why are you bugged out? It's written. It's written. Nothing new under the sun. Verse 2. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Right? You will have brothers and sisters that will leave a congregation that I'm not talking about people that were sincerely or truly done wrong by a congregation or a body, whatever like that. But I'm talking about people that will just be the devil. You'll be the devil. You'll get corrected for being the devil. I'm talking about brothers and sisters. You'll leave the congregation because you don't like to be corrected and then speak evil of the truth. Now this is not the truth no more. It was the truth until you got corrected. It was the truth until you did something wicked and someone corrected you and told you, gave you some rebuke, gave you some reproof. It was the truth up until then. Now all of a sudden you was in a cult. No, when you was in here, you wasn't in a cult. You wasn't in a cult. But you ran amok. You ran awry. You did what you wanted to do. You did something evil. You got reproved. Maybe possibly even got put out. Now all of a sudden, this ain't the truth. That was never the truth. I was in a cult. They was trying to control me. Listen, Jake, listen. I'm going to tell you something, man. The same niggerism you see today was going on in the first century. That's why I'm laughing. It's the same stuff that was going on. A Negro going to be a Negro then, and a Negro going to be a Negro now. That's how I know that it's our people. The same spirit I see in our people today that call themselves Israelites in the truth is the same spirit that these niggas in the Bible had back then too. It was the same. They gave the apostles the same hell. Right? And so we got to go through it too. That's why Christ said, if we're going to be glorified with him if we suffer with him. Christ was betrayed. You had people that was against Christ's teaching. They lied on him in that council that they had before he was crucified. They brought forth false witnesses. They did all of that. They did the same thing to the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts. Lied on him, brought forth false witnesses and all that. They did the same thing to Stephen in Acts chapter 7. Lied on him, brought false witnesses forth, so forth and so on. Why shouldn't it happen to us? Why shouldn't it? It's going to happen. So brothers and sisters got to put your big boy pants on, your boots on. And don't get all emotional when it happens. It's supposed to happen. It happened to the greatest of us, which is what Peter is telling us. Verse 3. And through covetousness shall they with vain words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Because ultimately, people that do these things, the Most High is going to judge you. He's going to judge you. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13, tells us that every work is going to be brought into judgment, whether it be good or evil. So judgment is coming for people that do these things. But what I'm showing you, brothers and sisters, is this has always been happening. There have always been people that were amongst the righteous, like the apostles, right? I'm not even putting myself in the company of the righteous or any of the brothers that I labor with a fellowship with, whether it be in my camp or other camps that I fellowship with. I'm not even putting us in the realm of the righteous per se. What I'm saying is that the most righteous of us, which are the apostles, you had people that turned on them and spoke evil about them. And guess what? People followed them. You mean to tell me that you rolling with Peter, and Peter is the one that Christ said, upon this rock will I build my church? Peter is the head apostle, right? And you gonna roll out with a Negro that goes against Peter, knowing that Peter walked with Christ? You had niggas that did that. They were that simple. The same way you had Negroes that did that, and they saw all the miracles that the Most High did by the hand of Moses, and they turned on Moses. See, this Bible is cyclical. The Israelites keep making the same mistakes, keep doing the same evil stuff, and it happens over and over and over again. And we read the Bible, we sit there, we read all these stories, and then when it happens in our day, we're like, I'm confused. No, you're not reading, you're not studying. That's why you're confused. You're not reading and you're not studying. That's why you're confused. The brothers and sisters that read and study are not confused. You will know when somebody's going off. Like, that dude is going the hell off. When people that have been in my presence go to hell off, I've heard, listen, it's been said, people have said that I act like I never knew them. You're damn right. I could turn it on and off. We could be the coolest of brothers and sisters one day, but you start coming teaching some damn heresies about we ain't got to keep the commandments and any type of other BS, it's like I never knew you. Understand? I'll see you in the kingdom. That's how I'm rolling. That's how serious I am about this truth. I don't want you around me because I don't want the people around me influenced by that madness. I don't let it bother me because I know it's coming because it's written. Does everybody understand? I don't want to belabor the point. Let's move on. This is the book of Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. This is what the Apostle Paul told the church at Galatia, which had a heresy circulating amongst them. As I mentioned, you read about that in Galatians chapter 2 and chapter 3. That justification is through the flesh. Mainly that's talking about circumcision and ultimately animal sacrifice. That's how you're justified through the Most High. But guess what? Israel was never justified to the Most High by being circumcised in the flesh, because you had circumcised Israelites that were wicked as hell. You had circumcised Israelites that would go make sacrifices at the temple, all the necessary sacrifices, and were wicked as hell, which is why we ended up in all them captivities. Justification is through the sacrifice of Yahweh Shai, Jesus Christ. That's how we're justified. So that was a heresy that was going on in that church then. You had two schools of thought in that church then. You had those in that church that was listening to what Paul said, and you had other people in that same church that were confused. That's why real quick, let's jump out real quick. Let's go there real quick. That's why Paul said this. Let's come here real quick. Let's go to the book of Galatians chapter 3. We just want to read verse 1. In fact, let's go to verse 2, chapter 2. I'm going in the spirit. This is not part of the PowerPoint, but I'm going in the spirit. Watch this. This is Galatians chapter 2, start from verse 1. Then 14 years after I went up to Jerusalem with Barnabas and took Titus with me, and went up by revelation and communicated unto them the gospel which I preach among the Gentiles. So Paul didn't say he was preaching to the Gentiles. He said among the Gentiles, because the prophecy was Israel will be scattered where? Among the Gentiles. Let's keep reading. But privately to them which were of reputation, lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. Verse 3. But neither Titus, who being with me, being a Greek, an Israelite that was raised in Greek customs, was compelled to be circumcised. Here's the point, verse 4. And that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy out our liberty, which we have in Christ Jesus, and bring us into bondage. You had these men that went down to the church of Galatia, and they was teaching justification through circumcision of the flesh. That's what they were teaching. When Paul taught the church, justification is through Christ. You know why? Because Titus was a grown man when he came to the knowledge of repentance. He had already missed that 8th-day circumcision. So if that's the case, if justification is through the circumcision of the flesh, he already missed the date. He already missed it. That's why we need Yahweh Shai. So that was what was going on in the church. But guess what? Let's go to chapter 3. I want to get back to the PowerPoint. This is why Paul said this, O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? It was those people in chapter 2 that came in to teach that doctrine. You always had this. And so Paul is asking the church, why are you confused? Why are you confused for? Because that's the mind of a Negro. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Paul was like, I already taught you. O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ had been evidently set forth crucified amongst you? I taught you about Yahweh Shai crucified, and through his blood, that's how we're justified. I evidently taught you that. I taught it to you plain as day. Why are you bewitched? Why are you confused? So what I'm showing y'all, it's the same spirit back then that's now. It's just history repeating itself. So that's why when brothers and sisters come to us and they say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you better read, you better study. Because the truth is evidently being set forth before you. It's just a matter of whether you're going to get it or not. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. This is the book of Galatians chapter 5. Now we're at chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. It says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I also told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven. So if you cause a heresy in Israel or be a part of one, no kingdom for you. I didn't say it. That's what the scriptures say. That's what the scriptures say. Why am I saying this? Because it's evident through the works, let's put it like that, in the earth, the teaching, the doctrine that the Most High is dealing with. I'm talking about the Israelite teaching. There's a doctrine that comes from a specific place. We ain't got to say when, that's flourishing in the earth above everybody else. It's evident. But you got a lot of people that like to come against that doctrine. They do it on purpose. That's not new either. We're about to read it. We about to read it, y'all. Watch this. Real quick, side note. This is there's a school in Russia called the Novgorod School of Icon Painting in Russia. And this is a 17th century icon of Peter and Paul together in this icon, black. If you're not sure, look at the scroll in Peter's hand and then look at his hand holding the scroll. That should tell you everything you need to know. And the same with the Apostle Paul. He's holding a book right here on the right. And look at his hand. Look at his feet. You can tell that they drew it with like they had sandals on. You can see the tongs. You can see like the black and the black underneath. And then you can see the foot inside the sandal. These are black people. So black Israelites don't have to make nothing up. You got to argue with the iconography from 300, 400, 500 years ago that was painted black before there was ever such a thing as a black Israelite. I'm just saying, but that's not today's lesson. Let's keep going. Now, some of you brothers and sisters may not be aware of who this guy is, but you should be. His name is Winston Churchill, and he has a lot of great famous sayings. He's the Prime Minister of England during World War II. It's a devil that the Bible speaks about, but he had a lot of great sayings. This is one. It says those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I say that's true. The devil lies about a lot of things, but he ain't lie about that. A lot of our people today in this Israelite walk and this Israelite movement are repeating history because you don't know history. And I know sometimes, like when I myself and other brothers go into history, it sounds to y'all like wah, 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 wah. Like if you ever listen to that old Charlie Brown, if you a certain age you listen to the old Charlie Brown, when the teacher will be speaking, it would just sound wah, 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 wah. That's how it sounds sometimes when we teach you history, right? I don't want to hear that. I don't care about that. But guess what? Some of that history, you know what I'm saying, is the bridge of understanding for you to understanding the Bible, because the Bible is a history book. It has nothing to do with religion whatsoever. And what you're going to find out is you are literally living and repeating the history of your forefathers. These same things the apostles went through is what you're going through today. I'm talking about especially you brothers that are of a certain rank or a certain position inside congregations and organizations and camps and churches. You brothers are literally, every time you have a problem in your congregation, every time that there's somebody that wants to leave or they want to do whatever they want to do or just be the devil in the congregation, just know the apostles had the same problems. Paul had the same problems. John had the same problems. They all had the same problems. So guess what? You're just sitting in their seat. That's all. You now sit the same way the Pharisees and the scribes and the Pharisees sat in Moses' seat. In these days and times, leading these congregations in these churches, guess whose seats we're sitting in? The apostles. We're not saying that we are the apostles, but we're sitting in their seat. We're sitting in their stead. We're doing their works. The works that they were doing, that's what we're doing. Going to camp, traveling all over the country to spread the word, traveling all over the globe, sometimes internationally to spread the word, being on Clubhouse from morning to night, teaching, hundreds, thousands of people passing through the room, learning. You don't even know who you're teaching. There's always somebody different in the audience passing through. You're doing the Acts of the Apostles all over again. So with those Acts of the Apostles, guess what comes with it? The problems. The problems come with it too. Let's go to the next slide. Now, let's look at this word heresy in Greek, because I told you that Christian definition was a little erroneous, right? So the outline of biblical usage, number one, says the act of taking or capturing something, right? Choosing or choice, that which is chosen. Definition 4, a body of men following their own tenets, like a sect, not sex like sex, a sect, S-E-C-T, sectarianism, meaning you have, like for instance, you had the Sadducees, that was a sect. You had the Pharisees, that was a sect or a party. You had the Christians or the Nazarenes, that was a sect or a party. These are called heresies. It's different sects, S-E-C-T-S. I'm going to keep spelling this so nobody thinks I'm saying the other word. There were different sects in the first century. So what you mean? Why are there so many different groups? Because there was then too. You ain't know? And they all didn't believe the same thing. It's a spiritual thing. The Most High got to draw you to the truth, man. The Most High has to draw you. It's not an excuse not to keep the commandments. It's not an excuse not to fellowship with brothers and sisters, possibly even join the organization because you're confused. No, it's not. It was the same thing back then. People didn't make those excuses back then. It's not an excuse. Let's look at the Strong's definition real quick, right? It says properly a choice, a party, or abstract. Another word is disunion. That's a heresy, where there's no longer a union, and that heresy is the union of beliefs. Okay? All right, so we're going to move on to the next slide now. Let's talk about the Church of Smyrna. Let's talk about the Church of Smyrna in the book of Revelation. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 11. This is Yahushua speaking to John on the island of Patmos. We're going to pick it up at verse 11, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia. This is Asia Minor, not Asia where the so-called Chinese are. Asia Minor, all right? unto Ephesus, unto Smyrna, I got Smyrna highlighted, unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Let's jump over to chapter 2 and verse 8. And unto the angel of the church of Smyrna, right? Right. So in chapter 1, verse 11, Yahushua Christ is telling John to write to the churches. Now in chapter 2 and chapter 3, he's telling John what to write to each church, right? We're not going to get into that now. That's another lesson. But let's read chapter 2, verse 8. And unto the angel of the church of Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. That word angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which means messenger. Messenger. So what's happening here? Let me explain to you guys what's happening here. The same thing that's happening in Revelations 2 and 3 is the same thing that's happening in your Corinthians, your Ephesus, your Ephesians, your Philippians, your Colossians. Those were churches. And Paul would write to those churches concerning matters that were going on in those churches. Everybody knows that. It's the same thing here. When you read Revelations 2 and 3, you're going to read about Christ instructing John to do what? Write to these churches and tell them, this is what I like about you, and this is what I don't like about you. Was John writing to an angel in the heaven? Was he writing to Michael, the archangel, or Gabriel? No. That word angelos means messenger. It's a man. He's writing this letter to this man that is the messenger or the leader or the bishop of these particular churches. In this particular case, it's the church at Smyrna. Let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to learn something called transmission. Just a little bit, not too much. John wrote that letter to a guy, brothers and sisters, by the name of Polycarp of Smyrna. Did you guys know that? Polycarp is our link back to John. This is very important to know because your conscious community and your atheists say nobody in the Bible existed. That's what they tell you. But in academia, there is no argument that Polycarp existed. Does everybody understand? Nobody argues that Polycarp existed. So now the question is, who is Polycarp? Who do they say he is? Well, let's find out. This is from Wikipedia. You can find the same thing on Britannica and many other books, but I just took the easiest photo I could take right now. I got books on this stuff, but I just didn't feel like taking pictures of my books. So this article, the reason why I'm using it, it says the same thing that the scholarly books say. So I just took the easiest route for now. Let's read about Polycarp. Polycarp, 69 AD to 155 AD. Why is that 69 date important, brothers and sisters? Why is it important? 1 year later, that's when the temple went down, 70 AD. Why else is that important? Because John the Revelator was banished to the island of Patmos like 25 years later. So Polycarp was born before the temple went down, and Polycarp was born before John was sent to the island of Patmos. So Polycarp is a contemporary, meaning he was around at the same time the apostles was around. Everybody got that? He's our link back to the apostles. Now we're getting into transmission. I told y'all the Most High didn't reach his black arm out the sky and give you no Bible. There were men involved in the transmission all the way down, And we got to know who some of these people are. Polycarp was a Christian bishop of where? Smyrna. That's your Revelations 2 and 8. He falls right into the timeline, the dates and everything. When Revelation was written, when John was on the island of Patmos, he falls right perfectly into the timeline. According to the martyrdom of Polycarp, he died a martyr, bound and burned at the stake, then stabbed when the fire failed to consume his body. Polycarp is regarded as a saint and a church father in the Catholic religion, the Eastern Orthodox religion, or Orthodox Church, which is another Christian offshoot, the Oriental Orthodox, Anglican, and Lutheran churches. Next paragraph, listen. Both Irenaeus and Tertullian say that Polycarp had been what? A disciple of John the Apostle, one of Jesus's disciples. He's the link back to Christ and John. So when Christ died, was off the scene, Paul was gone, John was on the island of Patmos, this is the guy that continued the tradition on at the Church of Smyrna. Nobody denies that he's a real person. Nobody. And his descendancy goes back to John, which goes back to Christ. Okay. We'll leave that there. I don't have to read the rest of that. That's fine. You guys can do more research on Polycarp yourself. And there were also, let's come back here, there were bishops over all these churches. Timothy was the first bishop of Ephesus, but then there were others after him. But that's another day, another lesson. I'm not going to go into that today. I don't want to go into too deep waters. So we see the lineage. You have John, the disciple of Yahushua, aka John the Revelator, down to Polycarp, and then you have another name there. Let's go forward. Right before we go to that, I wanted to take a picture of this book right here as well. Just as a second witness. We believe in our law 2 to 3 witnesses, right? So I couldn't just give you Wikipedia. So I forgot that I did go and grab one of my books. This is from a book called The Final Authority. You guys can see this is on page number 30. If you're listening on Clubhouse and you want to see, you got to click the link at the top. This is on page number 30. It says, the fervor of the apostolic age was passed into the 2nd century through men like Polycarp, Bishop of Smyrna, 69 to 155. That's the same thing the article said. That's the Wikipedia article said, which is why I used it, because it matches the scholarly books. Revered as a personal, what does that say? Revered as a personal disciple of John. So that's 2 witnesses. That Polycarp was taught by John the Revelator. So John had to be real if Polycarp is real, or something is wrong. Let's keep going. He perpetuated his mentor's fiery denunciation for any who would distort the divine record. Whosoever perverts the oracles of the Lord, he is the firstborn of Satan. Now you got it. Let's look at the dates again. Let's take our time. There's no rush. Let's take our time. 69 AD to 155 AD. That means you still had some of the apostles that were still alive. Not all of them, but you had some of the apostles that were still alive, and John was still alive. And what is Polycarp preaching about while some of the disciples are still alive and John is still alive? What is he preaching about? Whosoever perverts the oracles of God, he is the firstborn of Satan. Let me translate that for you, brothers and sisters. That means that in the apostolic age, when the apostles were walking the earth, you had heresies. You had people that was going against what the apostles were teaching, even though the apostles were the one that was walking with Christ. You had other people that never walked with Christ that was teaching a different doctrine about the Christ that they never met. Y'all understand? This is not new. So why do people trip when it happens now? I know, because like Winston Churchill said, if you don't know history, you repeat it. So now what's happening in our age, and people just bug out. Well, maybe this is not the truth. I don't know. People come with a double doctrine. Maybe this is not the truth. Let me chill out. Let's go to the next one. All right. Now we're going to go down another generation. This is what we were talking about on Clubhouse the other day. So I wanted to demonstrate this to you. So we go from John, the disciple of Yahushua, to Polycarp, who was the bishop of Smyrna. And then Polycarp bequeaths Irenaeus. He bequeaths Irenaeus. Do you guys see the succession line from Yahushua to John, from John to Polycarp, from Polycarp to Irenaeus? This is how you do transmission history. I'm not going to bore you guys with it, but this work needs to be done. We got to make this thing tangible and take the Bible out of the realm of being a religious book. These manuscripts that we have today got passed down by somebody. Somebody sat there and made copies before there was a printing press. Somebody sat there and scribed it. Somebody transmitted it and took it from Jerusalem to Egypt, from Egypt to Asia Minor. Somebody was doing all that. It didn't just magically appear. So we got to make understanding understood. And that's what that's what we venture to do when we do these lessons. That's the point. Because there's some people that this stuff is a stumbling block. They can't get it. How do I know? And how do I know? And why is this? Okay, so we have to demonstrate now. Demonstration beats conversation. Let's go. Who's Irenaeus? Let's read. Irenaeus was a Greek bishop. When they say Greek, meaning he was living in Asia Minor, y'all, where the churches were that we read in Revelations 1 and 2. He wasn't a literal Greek as in a white man. Okay, just understand that. He was living in a kingdom that the lingua franca was Greek. Irenaeus was an Israelite. Irenaeus was a Greek bishop noted for his role in guiding and expanding Christian communities in the southern regions of the present-day France, and more widely for the development of Christian theology by combating heterodox or Gnostic interpretations of Scripture as heresy. Let's look at the dates. 130 AD to 202 AD. All the way back then, we already saw it in his predecessor Polycarp's. Now we're looking here. They were heresies. The further you move away from the apostles in Christ is the more and more you started having people going off and adding to the original doctrine like you have today. It's the same stuff. Same thing. Let's just come to the next sentence, right? Originating from Smyrna, he had seen and heard the preaching of who? Polycarp, who in turn was said to have heard John the Evangelist, and was thus the last known living connection of the apostles. So you have the apostles, which includes John, who passes the knowledge down to Polycarp, and he becomes the bishop of the church of Smyrna, and Polycarp passes it down to Irenaeus. Does everybody see? Does everybody see that? It's better illustrated here. Okay. I think everybody got it. Everybody's smart. Let's move on. So, the picture might be a little blurry. Y'all forgive me. I have to do a better job of taking this picture. I'll take it again and do it. But you guys should be able to see what I'm reading at the bottom if you look closely enough, right? We're on page 37 of this book called The Final Authority. And you guys can see the title of the page says The Transmission of the Text. If you were in the room on Clubhouse this week, you guys heard me talking about that. The text had to be transmitted down from the apostles. I'm sure everybody within the sound of my voice has heard somebody ask y'all before, how do we know the Bible is accurate? How do we know that we have the Bible? Because it's something called transmission. It was transmitted from this guy to this guy to this guy to this guy. And there's college courses on this stuff, like I said, right? You know, it's not something that everybody has to know everything about, but if you could even just bring something like this, something small like this to people, just show them three. There's others, but just show them three. It might suffice where they want to come and learn more, because we can demonstrate this. Now we're already, by the time of Irenaeus, we are already at the time of his death at 202. Yahushua Christ was crucified, what they say, 30 AD. Some people say 33 AD. So we're 170 years after Christ already, give or take. We're about 170 years after Christ's crucifixion already. So, and we're seeing how everything was transmitted just between these three. And there are others. There's others. Let's keep going. Let's read this page right here, page 37. This is what it says. This is important too. With the Council of Nicaea, which was 325 AD, acting as their chronological watershed, church historians will generally arrange the fathers by the era in which they lived. I'm going to explain this stuff to you. This is wordy. Church historians will generally arrange the fathers by the era in which they lived. You have the apostolic age. That's considered to be from 75 to 150 AD. Then you have the ante-Nicene. The word anti is not anti with an I, it's anti with an E. That means before. The word anti with an I means against. So you have the ante-Nicene church fathers. That era goes from approximately 150 AD to 325. That's when the Council of Nicaea took place. And then you have the post-Nicene church fathers that goes from 325 to about 500 AD. Why is this important, brothers and sisters? Why is it? What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with everything. I'm going to explain. And in future lessons, I'm going to demonstrate. Your apostolic age church fathers is where you find the purest doctrine. It's where the doctrine most closely matches up to the apostles' doctrine. That's your apostolic age. That's why that's important. That's why I'm going to just say it. That's why that debate with Jabari the other day, I went on Sonetta's channel and I left a comment and I made a post on Facebook. Some of y'all saw it, and on Instagram, that Jabari's presentation was trash. It was garbage. Sorry. And that's not personal. That's not personal. That's just real. His presentation was trash. I'm going to tell you why. It's right in front of you. We just read it. If you are debating from the standpoint and saying that the Christianity, right, stole from Egypt, and then I'm watching your presentation and you are using post-Nicene church fathers. What's post-Nicene? From 325 to 500 AD. You got to go 300 plus years after Christ died to find church fathers that start incorporating certain Egyptian symbology in their churches in Egypt. Because if you go to Egypt, you go to certain Christian churches, right? Ancient churches, you will see sometimes like some of the churches actually have the Ankh in there. But what I need for you guys to understand, that's why I'm going slow. This is your post-Nicene Council Christianity. After the Council of Nicaea, far removed from the apostles, by this time you had hundreds of years of all types of heresies going on. So of course, you're going to start seeing an incorporation or amalgamation of BS from the other nations, because by this time the heresies were running rampant. What he did not do, which is why I said that his presentation was trash, you didn't show apostles or church fathers from the apostolic age doing that. And that was the challenge I gave him 2 or 3 years ago before the pandemic, when this debate was supposed to happen, and they had the weigh-in at his shrine. And I was asked what I expected to see in his presentation. I told him, you got to show the apostolic age church fathers having ankhs and all this other stuff from Egypt, teaching all that certain things about Egypt and Horus. You got to show them doing that. You won't, because they were right there among the apostles, with the apostles. They were taught by the apostles, and they wasn't teaching that. It's these demons that come up after the Council of Nicaea where you start to see the incorporation of all these heresies. I'm talking about as far as amalgamating Egyptian symbology into the Christian thing. I hope everybody is following along. I hope I'm not going over everybody's head. But I'm trying to show y'all something. This is early church history. Y'all got to know this. You should know. You absolutely, if you're a teacher, you should know this. Because sometimes they argue from a place where they know that our people don't know this, and so they could do stuff like that. I'm going to bring you somebody from 375 AD, right? Which is what he did. No. Those are the post-Nicene church fathers. They were off by then. They were far removed from the apostles. Some of these guys don't even come from the same stream. I'm going to show you this in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Some of these guys don't even come from the same stream as the apostles at all. They were just totally off. Let's just keep going. I don't want to give it all away. But you guys, hopefully everybody's understanding what it is I'm saying. I'm trying to go slow. And I'm trying not to talk past anybody, because everybody in the academy, I could talk a little faster, because I know everybody's there for that. But only Sabbath services, sometimes I don't want to go too deep, because everybody's not here for deep stuff. So I get it. Let's move to the next slide. All right. Who's Cerinthius? That's a name that 9 out of 10 Israelites never heard. You should know who he is. Let's read why. This is from Bible Gateway. I go to the modern websites first, then we're going to go to the ancient sources and read about Cerinthius. Bible Gateway Plus. You guys, anybody can go to the website and get this. Who's Cerinthius? Or Cerinthus, Lockie. Cerinthus is not mentioned in the Bible, which is why most people don't know about him. But he was an early Gnostic who lived at the close of the first Christian century. According to Irenaeus, why is Irenaeus important? We got to come back, and we got to come back to the slide again. Irenaeus is directly from the line of John the Apostle down to Polycarp, down to Irenaeus. He's still with the pure doctrine for the most part, still. Does everybody understand that? Okay. According to Irenaeus, he appeared about the 88th year, was known to the Apostle John. Guess what? Cerinthius was an opponent of John the Revelator. They were against each other. The students of John the Revelator record this in history early. Cerinthius believed in Christ and all that. There's not a lot known about him historically, but he believed in Christ and all that. But he had his own doctrine, aside from what the apostles was teaching. Now, for the most part, this is me speaking personally, and for the brothers that we fellowship with, most of what Cerinthius taught was right, but his understanding of creation is wrong. And because of that, him and John, they were opponents. We're going to read it. Let's read it. Was known to the Apostle John. It was in refutation of errors, and it was in refutation of his errors that John wrote his gospel. So what Irenaeus is telling us, Irenaeus received this story from Polycarp, and Polycarp was told this from John. Irenaeus says the reason why John wrote the book of 1 John was because of Cerinthius, because Cerinthius was off and had all types of messed up doctrines. This is what's being said in the 2nd century. This is what's being said. One generation removed from when the apostles and Christ was on the scene. The very next generation that comes up, they're writing and saying, hey, this guy Cerinthius was an opponent of John. And one of the reasons why John had to write that was because of this guy. He had a doctrine about creation that was off. This is Bible Gateway. It's not me saying this. They're letting you know that this is what it is. The apocryphal epistle of the Apocryphals, written around the 2nd century, lists him along with another guy named Simon Magnus. And Simon Magnus is mentioned in your 2 Babylons. All you brothers that have the book 2 Babylons and you haven't read it, it's just a decoration on your bookshelf. Not good. Simon Magnus is mentioned in the 2 Babylons. So it lists him, Cerinthius, with Simon Magnus as one of 2 false apostles, concerning whom it is written that no man shall cleave with them. So right here in the 1st century, contemporary with John, you had other people that taught Christ, but they was teaching heresy concerning Christ. Cerinthius is one, and Simon Magnus is another. If you don't know those guys, write them down and do your research on those guys. Everybody has a smartphone. If you're watching this on a smartphone, open up your notepad and write down Cerinthus and Simon Magnus. These guys were teaching heresy at the same time the apostles were on the scene. Why are we going over this? Because people say, I'm confused. Well, the same thing that's happening now was happening then. That's why I'm doing this lesson. It's not new. It's not new. Keep going. Cerinthus was a Jew by race. He studied in Alexandria, appeared in Palestine, that's what that's for, and was most active in Western Asia Minor, spreading his false teaching about the person of Christ. Here's the heresy right here. He taught that the world was created not by God, but by a power far separated from him. In other words, when you do other research and read other more scholastic books, it tells you that he believed that the world was created not by the Most High and the Son, but by some other angels or spiritual forces that didn't even know of the existence of the Most High. That's off. That's off. So that's where the contention, that is a heresy. Because what the apostles taught, that Christ taught them, was something else. So he had his own doctrine on that. But like I told you, he had a lot of other stuff that was correct, at least as far as I'm concerned. Let's keep reading. All right. But by power separate from him. Here's what else he taught. He also taught that Jesus was the natural son of Joseph and Mary. That's important too, because that's correct. What is this showing us, brothers and sisters? You had people that was walking around in the first century during the apostolic age that knew that Joseph was the father. He's right about this. He's wrong about the other stuff, but he's right about this. But because he has a different doctrine on creation, they didn't get along, according to scholars. Although he was more righteous and prudent and wise than other men, right? And he had a bunch of other doctrines. I'm going to leave this, especially for you teachers, I'm going to leave this for you guys to go and do your research on this guy, all right? But I'm showing you that there were heresies, there were separations, there was sects, S-E-C-T-S, back then in the first century. Why are you surprised it's that way now? Why? What you thought because you came into the truth, you came into the kingdom of heaven? No. That's why, you know what? I'm not going to go ahead of myself. I'm going to wait till I get to that slide. Now, here's what I was talking about. When Irenaeus was alive, he wrote a book called Against Heresies, right? He wrote a book called Against Heresies. On page number 3, you guys can see it in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the page that was being quoted on Bible Gateway, where they're speaking about Cerinthius and the doctrine that he had that was off. It's on here on page 3. I'm not really going to read it right now for the sake of brevity, because I said I wasn't going to do a long class today. Let's move to the next one, right? This is page 26. This is what Irenaeus is writing concerning Cerinthius. It says, this right here. It says, this is chapter 11. It says, John, the disciple of the Lord, preaches this. You know what? There was something I wanted on the first page. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Where is it? I should have highlighted it, but it's okay. All right. So I want you guys to look right here if you can see it. I know it might be small if you're looking at this on the phone. These are some other names. Valentius, Heresies, he had. Marcion, everybody knows Marcion of Sinope, Heresies. And Cerinthius. I just want to show you guys this. These guys were all around when the apostles was around, teaching a different gospel than they was teaching, but they was the ones that actually walk with Christ. Imagine that. Let's go to the next page. All right, so now we're back to page 26. This is what it says. It says, John, the disciple of the Lord, preaches this faith and seeks by proclamation of the gospel to remove that error by which Cerinthius has been disseminating among men, and a long time previously by the termed Nicolaitans, which you read about in the book of Revelation chapter 2 and 3. The Nicolaitans were teaching false doctrines. Right behind them comes Cerinthius and all these other guys with different doctrines and teaching heresies in the first century when the apostles were still walking around. So I'm doing this just to seal it in. I think it should be sealed now to everybody. That's not something to bug out about, because you see people teaching different things. It's up to you to study to make sure that you are with the right thing. We're going to get to that in a minute, though. Some other groups or sects that were around at that time was the Nazarenes, of course. You had the Ebionites, of course. And as I mentioned, the Cerinthians, Cerinthius and his followers. Some of the good things that they did, they were law keepers. So these early Christians or followers of Christ, even though some of them had different doctrines, you know what they all agreed on? They kept the law. They observed the Sabbath, all that. They did circumcision of the flesh. Wait a minute. I thought Paul was teaching you'd have to circumcise no more. But the Nazarenes were still circumcising. The Ebionites and the Cerinthians were still circumcising and keeping the law and keeping the Sabbath. And they didn't believe in the virgin birth. All the way back then. Because people will make you think that that's a one West doctrine. Well, we just learned today, nope. You have people that were right there in the first century with the apostles walking around saying Joseph is the father, period. Now, as I mentioned, this we're back onto this book called The Final Authority. I went one page over. The last page we looked at was page 37. This is page 38. It just gives you a lot of the names of the ante-Nicene fathers. I mean, the post-Nicene fathers, the ones that were after the Council of Nicaea. A lot of these dudes were heretics. They had all types of doctrines. They were further and further and further removed from the doctrine of the apostles. As time went on, you still have people that was teaching and doing it correct, but the ones that were teaching these heretical doctrines had the louder voice at this time. They had the greater numbers at this time, like the Christian church today, which comes from these heretical doctrines after the Council of Nicaea. A lot of the symbolism that you see in a lot of these Christian churches is pagan. The cross, they have the cross, and sometimes they have the cross like in a shroud. Sometimes they have the cross with a crown on it, just all types of pagan symbolism. Sometimes even the coats of arms that you see on their stained glass windows and their logos and stuff like that. All that stuff is pagan, man. The symbolism is pagan. You know why? Because the post-Nicene church fathers started adding pagan symbolism after the Council of Nicaea. They had the louder voice. This is where your Christian church comes from. And the ones that were keeping the commandments and doing it right, there was less of them. Just like today. The Israelite movement is small in comparison to the Christian church and Islam and everybody else. We're small. Same thing back then. Same thing now. What about Philo? You guys ever heard of Philo before? Some of you guys may have heard of him. Some of you guys may have not. But you should know. Philo of Alexandria, where he's from should tell you everything you need to know. But I'm going to help you out. Let's look at the dates. 20 BCE to 50 CE or 50 AD, whatever you want to say. 50 AD, right? 20 BC to 50 AD. Philo's from Alexandria, Egypt. Okay. Now, let's read about Philo really quickly. And I'm going to show you guys something. If you guys are on Clubhouse, again, you guys hear me use a term all the time. If you're not from Clubhouse, you guys probably don't hear me use this term a lot. The term is called syncretism. Syncretism. You guys will see it right here in this illustration. But we're going to get to the illustration in a minute. Pay attention. Philo of Alexandria, 20 BC to 50 AD. Why are those dates important? Once again, this guy is around during what time, brothers and sisters? He's around during the time that Christ is walking the earth. And he's around after Christ dies during the apostolic age. Got it? Now let's read what he was doing. Also called Philo Judaeus, was a Hellenistic Jewish philosopher who lived in Alexandria in the Roman province of Egypt. But the lingua franca, they were speaking Greek there. Let's go to the next one. Pay attention. Philo's development of allegory to harmonize Jewish scriptures, mainly the Torah, with Greek philosophy was the first documented of its kind. Translation, brothers and sisters. At the same time Christ was walking the earth, at the same time the apostles were walking the earth, down in Egypt, you had this guy named Philo, and he was mixing the Israelite customs with Greek philosophy. That's called syncretism. That's called syncretism. That's what he was doing. This is a heresy. Really quickly, I want to show you guys something. We're going to come back. We're going to go in the spirit. I'm going to go in the spirit. Let's go. Let's open up another tab. Here it is right here. I was just looking for it real quick. I want you guys to look at this right here, right? Philo of Alexandria, right? He lived in Alexandria, which at a time counted, according to some estimates, about 1 million people and included the largest Jewish community outside of it. It would say Palestine. It would say Palestine, right? You had one of the largest Jewish or Israelite communities in Egypt. Why would that be the case? Because the Israelites were always going down into Egypt. We went down into Egypt during the time of Jeremiah and Isaiah. The scriptures speak about that, right? We went down into Babylon. We went down into Egypt all those times, and many times we stayed there. We have been there for hundreds of years by the time Philo comes on the scene in Egypt. So he has a large audience. Let's come back to the PowerPoint for 1 second. He has a large audience that he's disseminating this nonsense to. A lot of our people that are living in Egypt and have been there for hundreds of years. And he's teaching them this syncretized Salakia, version of our customs. It's our customs in the Torah mixed in with Greek philosophy. That's what Philo was doing. That's a heresy. This is going on at the same time that Christ is on the scene, Yahushua, and Paul comes up after. And that's why when you read in the book of Acts, when Paul was going out throughout Asia Minor, it talks about him going into the synagogues and reasoning with the Jews. Some of these Jews were these people. They had the same philosophy in Asia Minor. Syncretized Judaism, for lack of a better word. Syncretized Hebrew Israelite customs. Israelite customs mixed with Greek philosophy. That's what you had. And this is outside of the Pharisees and the Sadducees pushing traditions of that oral Torah. That's also is not scripture either. So we was getting it from all sides. Is everybody following? That's why the Bible says the road to the, I'm loosely paraphrasing, the scriptures say the road is narrow and few there are that find it. That's written for a reason. This truth is hard to find. There's other scriptures that speak about the truth like a treasure being buried in the field, and you got to go dig that thing up. That's what this truth is. It's hard to find in a world full of lies. Even when you come into the Israelite custom, you could come into a lie. You could come into a syncretized version. This truth is hard to find, y'all. That's why Yahushua Christ said, blessed are your eyes because you see and your ears because you hear. For many people have desired to see what you see and they can't see it. You can't see it. Let's come back out to PowerPoint for a second. And let's really quickly go to Google Images. I'm going to show you guys something, right? Let's go to the missionary journeys of Paul. Paul, a map, right? I like this very much, right? Because this has all the missionary journeys of Paul. Let's blow it up real quick if we could. You'll see it better this way. Come down. We're just going in the spirit, y'all. Just going in the spirit. Did I pass it? Did I pass it? Here we go. Why is it that I always have this ad at the bottom I can't get rid of? I ain't going to stress it. Don't worry about it. Let's go. There we go. Okay. I want you guys to take a look at this map, and I want you guys to tell me what it is you notice. I want you guys to tell me what it is you know. What was we just talking about? We were talking about Philo. Where's Philo from? Where's Philo from? And then what do you notice about the map? Paul's missionary journeys. What do you notice? you'll notice that there's no missionary journeys to Egypt, to Alexandria. None. Do you read about the 12 going to Alexandria either? Nope. Did Paul go make any missionary journeys to Alexandria? Nope. But yet, all of a sudden, we have New Testament manuscripts coming out of Alexandria, Egypt, called the Alexandria manuscripts. That's where you get a lot of your modern Bibles. They utilize manuscripts from Alexandria, Egypt. They're known as the Alexandria manuscripts. How, Sway? How, Sway? The apostles never went to Alexandria, neither did Paul. You guys see that? Okay. Okay. I'm just asking. I'm just asking. Okay. Anyway, the problem is, now we can come back here and get a better understanding. The problem is, you got this guy named Philo in Egypt, and he's teaching our customs, right? And what he's doing, according to this chart, which is a good chart, he took man-made religious beliefs, which is Greek philosophy. He took our customs, which is the Bible, and blended it together. That's what he did. That's what he did. This is page 74 of the same book, The Final Authority, which I've been showing you guys. Let's start right here, predictably. Let's see. Let's start here. Predictably, the strong intellectual temptation of Greek philosophy began its subtle encroachment with the apex of the Judaic defection realized under Jewish scholar Philo, BC 20 AD to 50 AD, with a ministry that spanned both testaments. Wait, what? With a ministry that spanned both testaments. How? They never went to Egypt. How? Somehow or another, manuscripts pop up in Egypt. That's for another, when we do textual criticism, because a lot of times you guys hear us talk about textual criticism, we're going to have an in-depth conversation about that, because that's a big problem. And the reason why it's a big problem, you're seeing it on the screen right here, because a lot of the Jews that were in Egypt were doing what's called syncretized Judaism. They was mixing it in with Greek philosophy. That's why those texts are corrupt that come from there. Let's read again. Predictably, the strong intellectual temptation of Greek philosophy began its subtle encroachment with the apex of Judaic defection realized under the Jewish scholar Philo, with a ministry that spanned both testaments. This renegade son of Abraham established a theological school to promote the merger of Old Testament Judaism with Greek philosophy. When is this taking place? First century. What is this? This is a heresy. Y'all get it? You understand what I'm telling y'all? This has always been happening. It's always been difficult to find the truth. It's always been that way. Just be happy the Most High open your eyes for you to find it. This is the Apostle Paul giving us warning in the book of Acts chapter 20. That icon is from the Annunciation Cathedral in Russia, another black icon of Paul. It says, "Take heed, therefore, unto yourselves and to all the flock, over which the Holy Ghost have made you overseers, to feed the church of God, which he hath purchased with his own blood." Verse 29. "For this I know, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you." This is a prophecy. "Not sparing the flock. Also of your own selves shall men arise, speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after them." So Paul was, and this happened immediately within their lifetime or right after their lifetime. We just went through some of the history and we saw it. It's always been this way. And we were warned it's going to be this way. So you shouldn't be surprised. Move on. History repeats itself. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. There is no new thing under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. Conclusion. All the churches of Asia Minor, both Paul's churches that you read about in the epistles and John's churches you read about in Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3, they bequeathed apostles. You had people that came up under them. Some of those men continued in the apostles' doctrine, and some went into heresy. Just like today. Some brothers we teach, they continue with us. And some brothers we teach, after a while, they break off from the camp and start their own thing and start teaching a new doctrine. It's the same thing. That pattern continued as the gospel spread. No different than today. You had many groups then, and you have many groups now. Pray to the Most High for discernment, but above all, Psalms 111, verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do what? Do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. So if you want the Most High to give you a good understanding as to what the truth is, because that's what we all desire. Now that we have seen all the things that have happened from the apostolic age to now, you want to understand and know for a fact what the truth is. Well, that's the key. Do the commandments. A good understanding have all they that do the commandments. That's the primary thing. Then you add in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You got to study. You got to study. And keep the commandments. You add in prayer and fasting, and the Most High can and will give you the understanding of what's going on. So what I want to know, you guys already know the deal. What I want to know is if what I showed you, brothers and sisters, made sense. If it made sense, I need for you brothers and sisters to put one in the chat. Let me know that what I went over made sense to you all. Just make sure, give me 1 second. Alrighty then. All praise to the Most High for that. I appreciate you brothers and sisters listening. Really quickly, let's just let me remind you brothers and sisters of a couple of things. Let me remind you sisters of a couple of things real quick. Let me just open up another tab. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I'm going to get you guys out of here. I know I've been talking for a while. This lesson is almost 2 hours, and I said I wasn't going to do that much. Okay, let's do it this way so I could be in short. Okay, let's go. Okay. All right, brothers and sisters. So I'm going to constantly share this with you guys for just a couple of weeks so you guys get the idea. This is our new website, right? thelinesofisrael.com. The reason why I'm here, I'm going to come right to the point. I'm going to hover over this thing that says books. You guys see me going to a lot of books. Like, damn, you got a lot of books. You don't have to be like me and have hard copies of all these books. We live in the digital age now. you can come to our website, thelionsofisrael.com, double click on this tab that said books, double click on it, right? And you guys will see I have PDFs of a lot of the books that I go over. I have a lot of PDFs of a lot of the books that I go over in my lessons. And I had a busy week, so I wasn't able to add more, but it's gonna constantly be updated. So if you're watching these lessons and you want access to some of the books that I go over, some of the information that I share, you guys can feel free to come to our website. It's a free resource for all of Israel. You guys can come to my website. You can download whatever you need. You can follow along in the lesson, and then you can, save some of those books or whatever like that, whatever you need. So you can teach these informations to your people as well. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, right? When you hover over the tab that says more, the first one I'll go to is calendar, right? And just be admonished and advised as always, right? That you just toggle to the right or to the left to go forward or backwards. And it's going to give you everything you need to know about the holy days. January, we have all the Sabbaths there as far as the way we observe them. And of course, when we come here, Passover is April the 3rd, as far as we're keeping it. Passover is April the 3rd, and we're having it in Newark, New Jersey. All right. More details, more information on that to come. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come, you guys see at the bottom of the screen, the email is there. You got to email us and let us know you're interested in coming so we can give you the information that you need in order to be able to attend. All right. And of course, lastly, once again, as always, I have to do it. I appreciate everybody that, donates to the camp. It definitely helps us. If when you come under the more, you come to donations, it gives you, if you want to do it by PayPal, by Zelle, by Cash App, all that stuff is there. Right. So that's it. I'm not going to prolong that any longer. All right. If you guys are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you can be notified when we drop new videos. Okay. And last but not least, again, I appreciate everything you brothers and sisters are doing as far as supporting us. And with that, this your brother Priest Daniela, represent Lions of Israel, represent Maccabees TV. And our Most High allow, I will see you brothers and sisters again next week. And I say shalom.
And I beheld heaven open, and behold a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. We are at
so war. You better lace your straps up.
Physical and spiritual.
We're at war. So you better lace your straps up.
Man, the hell up this road.
This is war.
We are at war.
So you better lace your straps up.
And spiritual.
We're at war. So you better lace your straps up.
Big tanks, warships, and planted hands with small chips. North Korea, Russian spies, war is at our doorsteps. History doesn't lie, they beat the slaves with horse whips. So I think it's only right we pay them back with sword tips. End of time, spoken of, it's gonna get a little warm. Daniel 7 started 8, judgment of the little horn that beat us down, held us back, called us by obscenities. Prepare us a table in the presence of our enemies and pay them back. Worse than that, they argue that the earth is flat. Our babies dying, mothers crying, cities full of murdered blacks. Hispanics too, they hate you too. Edomites are not your friend. Harmless smile behind the scenes. They tracking you through iPhone 10 technologies, through policy. We served them since the colonies. This ain't our rest, my mind is right. This place is hell, I'm not at ease. I swore an oath with every breath. I promise to defend the law. Sword is sharpened, armored up. I'm calling for the men of
this
war.
Is war. So you better lace your straps up.
And
we're at war. So you better lace your straps up.
Man, the hell up this road.
This is war.
We are at war.
So you better lace your straps up.
and spiritual.
We're at war, so you better lace your straps
Man,
up.
Israel.